All right, guys. So the Hollywood Reporter has put out an article talking about the state of Star Wars at Lucasfilm, and it's kind of ridiculous. So let's jump right into it. So we're just gonna read through this because it's just like it can't be that hard. It truly can't be that hard. Okay, so it says Star Wars movies race for Rey and the future of the franchise on the big screen. The scavenger turned Jedi, played by Daisy Ridley in the last 3-episode movies, is key to the space opera's next turn. Forget the Death Star. The most coveted weapon in the Star Wars movies' arsenal is the character of Rey Skywalker. Since the November 7th reveal that Simon Kinberg had signed on to develop and write and produce a new Star Wars trilogy for Lucasfilm and Disney, debate is focused on whether or not it would be a continuation of the so-called 9-film Skywalker saga, tying it to the legacy of Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, and storylines first laid out by George Lucas in 1977. So, the fact that they don't know at this point what they're doing is actually insane. How do you not know the answer? How are you still debating this? Like, one of the most obvious problems that the sequel trilogy had was that they didn't have a plan. They didn't know what they were doing for their next 2 movies after The Force Awakens. And so you have a bunch of different directors coming in being like, actually, I think this. And then the other guy comes in and he's like, actually, I think it should be this way. And it's just, like, what? How are you still debating whether or not you're going to continue the Skywalker saga or not? Like, it's so... It's insane to me. It's insane to me. Because, by the way, remember, the Rise of the Skywalker, that shit came out in 2019. They've had 5 years to figure it out. I guess they're still debating it. The reason for the debate is that the new hoped-for trilogy would feature Rey in some form or fashion. Some fans have expressed criticism that Lucasfilm would return to the well to make episodes, as they are called, beyond the 9 movies that comprise the Skywalker story, which had been billed as concluding with 2019 Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. That film grossed $1 billion globally, but also wasn't received well by much of the fan base. I mean, I don't know, you can make a new episodic trilogy or whatever. I think that's fine, but you can still make it a new thing. Like the fact that these are even the things that are being like toiled around a lot. Like, oh man, should we make episode 10 or not? What do we do? Like. That's not even an important thing to quibble over, in my opinion. Sorry, I forgot that you couldn't see the article there. But Rey, the scavenger turned Jedi, played by Daisy Ridley in the last 3-episode movies, is key to the franchise's next turn. That potentially puts Kinberg's trilogy story development, as early in its conceptual stages as it may be, on a collision course with the Rey standalone movie that is actively in the works with director Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. So this is fucking insane. How does the top brass at Lucasfilm not know what they want their stories to be? They're just letting, apparently, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, she's doing her own thing, and then Simon Kinberg, he's now doing his own thing, and they both want to use Rey. Kathleen Kennedy should know where she wants the Rey character to go. She should be setting up parameters of how these directors can use Rey and how they can't use Rey. Like, what are we even talking about right now? How is it even possible that Simon Kinberg and Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy aren't communicating in some fashion? How is it possible that Kathleen Kennedy or Dave Filoni, whoever's job I guess it would be, how is it possible that they're not working as an intermediary, being like, hey, by the way, you can't do this because Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy is already doing that? Like, what? Like, how have you not learned this lesson? It's so stupid. It's so stupid. Oh my god. That feature, revealed with fanfare in April 2023 at Star Wars Celebration in London, is to star Ridley and could have already been in production were it not for some anticipated headwinds, with writers rotating around more than R2-D2's Chrome Dome. A new writer search is underway, so it's unclear where that one would go. So I guess now we're back to stage one with the Charmin Obey-Chinoy movie? Oh my god, what are we doing? I'm trying to highlight this specifically, but it keeps on... Okay, you know what? Fuck you. Fuck you, computer. We're not going to highlight things that I'm talking about. So yeah, well, I guess the Charmin Obey-Chinoy movie is back at square one because they're looking for new writers? Like, what? How is that movie not well underway? What are we even talking about? At this point, who even knows if there's even going to be any sort of conflict between Charmin Obey-Chinoy and Simon Kinberg, because I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple weeks we hear that Charmin Obey-Chinoy has stepped away from the project due to creative differences or whatever. Perhaps that is why Lucasfilm was perceptive to Kinberg's multi-story pitch. Anything to move Rey forward. But it does engender rumors in the Star Wars underground of filmmakers jostling for characters. Ridley, for her part, recently told The Hollywood Reporter, "I feel like the new one / new ones will be so interesting. Time has passed and a lot has changed for me." Okay, whatever, who cares about that? While insiders dispute the notion that there is a battle for Rey, there definitely is internal deliberation within Lucasfilm as to what to do with the heir to Skywalker next. She is the most valuable cinematic asset. In some ways, maybe the only one Star Wars has right now. One source close to the franchise tells The Hollywood Reporter, Pedro Pascal's Mandalorian and Yoda-like Grogu are Disney Plus creations and will have their big screen power tested with a feature directed by Jon Favreau releasing in 2026. I mean, this is just like such a weird mentality to have where it's like, just make a good movie. Why are we talking about, do we have the right cinematic asset? Just make a good movie. Star Wars is the asset. Lightsaber, that's the asset. Droids, those are the assets. Speeder bike, those are the assets. You don't need a horrifying sex doll looking Luke Skywalker showing up in your retarded fucking final episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian in order to make a good Star Wars thing. By the way, I'm not saying that scene was necessarily bad, but like, you don't need that. If you just make a good Star Wars movie, you can create new cinematic assets. Why are we thinking about this in the frame? Like, it sounds like part of maybe the confusion between Simon Kinberg and Charmin Obey-Chinoy might even be that Disney's like, we need to use our cinematic asset Rey in order to in your stories. We need Rey to move forward. She's our only asset. Like, what are we even talking about? Just make a good movie. It's so stupid. I don't know, but I honestly didn't think I was going to be this upset. I'm not even going to lie to you. Wait, what happened to the article? Wait, is it back now? Okay. According to sources, Rey is set to play a role in several movies that are being developed, although which ones remain unclear. Star Wars movie development has been under scrutiny for several years, with Lucasfilm head Kathleen Kennedy taking fire for not developing meaningful characters beyond those first created by Lucas, prior to the sale to Disney in 2012 for $4 billion. And if the franchise looks forward in its canon timeline, all those beloved characters, Luke, Leia, Vader, Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Han, are dead, or had their storylines wrapped in prequels or spin-offs. Rey, created in the post-Lucas era, is arguably the only entity with currency on the big screen now. This closet is a little bare, says another source. Like, but it's just like so weird that this is even being talked about like this. Do you think, like, how did those become cinematic assets or whatever the fuck? How did Luke, how did Leia, how did Darth Vader, how did Obi-Wan become cinematic assets? It's because they were original characters at some point. They starred in Star Wars A New Hope. You just make a good movie with original characters and you can make your own assets. I don't know. I don't even know how many other ways I can say how stupid this is. What the Kinberg hiring lays bare is that development of movies at the company remains its own unique ecosystem in Hollywood. There are numerous Star Wars movies being developed that overlap characters or timelines. They're not related, but whatever one were to come out first could, in a domino effect, impact the ones after it. Then, I don't know, maybe have your directors communicate with one another. Or maybe Kathleen Kennedy could do her freaking job and make sure that there isn't any overlap happening. What? Like, I sincerely have no idea how Kathleen Kennedy still has her job. It genuinely makes no sense to me. Like, and before people come in, I know because people have like the anti-woke, like whatever retardation, they're gonna be like, oh well, obviously it's because she's a woman and they're not gonna fire a woman. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, even if that was true, even if that was true, they could just replace her with another woman that would probably do a better job. So like, there's something there, like there's clearly something weird going on at Lucasfilm. Like, Kathleen Kennedy has to have Bob Iger pictures of him in unscrupulous situations or something like that. I don't know. Some Lucasfilm directors are aware of what others are working on, while others are not. For instance, Taika Waititi is working on a Star Wars movie. Sean Levy has a feature project in the works, and Donald Glover's Lando idea has moved over development from the TV to the side to the film side of Lucasfilm. A Rogue Squadron project is also still in development as a feature. It's a different way of development, says another insider familiar with the company's way of working. There's so much parallel going on. But that's the thing. It's like, that's what the MCU has been doing this entire time. What do you mean it's a different way of development? There's so much parallel going on at the moment. It's like, yeah, that's what the MCU has done. Wait, what do you mean it's like so different from traditional development? Like, yeah, your sister company has set the model. Like, that's why they have Kevin Feige, who goes in and makes sure that everything fits together perfectly. Now, granted, he hasn't been able to do it in recent years, but that's because they started prioritizing quantity over quality. But like, Star Wars doesn't even have quantity. They haven't put out a fucking movie in 6 years, so it's not even like they don't even have the same problem. They're not even trying to do what the MCU does. Oh my god, I need to calm down. There's just something about reading this that just triggers me. Then I don't even understand this next part. It also points to the unique nature of Star Wars to fans and in this case, filmmakers and producers. It is not a brand or a franchise, but something akin to a religion. Unlike Marvel or DC with decades of stories propelling them forward, or even Harry Potter with 7 fleshed out books, Star Wars at its core has been the original George Lucas movies, and nothing has been codified or been made more canonical in modern times than those 3 movies. To filmmakers and executives, the first trilogy is the Old Testament. You're being asked to create the New Testament, adds one source who worked on previous movies, and no one can agree on anything, and there is a lot of second guessing about meanings. I mean, this is just ultimately the problem, right? Like, Kathleen Kennedy needs to be making the New Testament. The head of Lucasfilm, like the executives at Lucasfilm, they need to be creatively involved. They need to be setting the stage for what Star Wars is going to be in the future. You cannot just have 5 different directors just farting around doing their own thing and then shitting it out into the world and hoping that none of it overlaps with each other, that none of it contradicts each other. Like, that's just it. That just is what it is. So it's just like insane to me that 5 years after the rise of Skywalker, they have not learned anything. It is still the exact same process that they're still doing the same shit. I don't understand how like Bob Iger hasn't come in and been like, hey, Kathleen, sorry, you gotta go. We need to try something else. It's just insane. Another source familiar with the process is more business-minded, noting Star Wars is a nostalgia-based enterprise, and they're running out of ways to create nostalgia. What do you mean? What do you mean create nostalgia? You create nostalgia by creating the base thing, by creating the new movie, the new characters that are good and that people like and that then people are nostalgic for. What do you mean you ran out of ways of creating nostalgia? Like, I guess what that really means is that they're running out of times where they can bring in a dead fucking CGI character from the past. I guess, sure, they might be running out of ways to do that. But, like, just that phrase of we're running out of ways of creating nostalgia. No, you're not. You're not, actually. You can always start doing it whenever you feel like it. The television side doesn't appear to have these problems, as several insiders note that ARM has a lot more freedom to expand Lucas's universe, which is why there's been a varied slate that runs the gamut. So, listen. Okay, I guess I'll read this last bit here. Adds an insider. To make standalone movies or continuing the Skywalker saga in any form is a fundamental question the company faces as it tries to move forward. The reality is that you can do whatever you want. Like, you can just do standalone movies. You can continue the Skywalker saga. You can do a new trilogy, right? Episodes 10, 11, and 12. You can do that. You can do that. But you can bring back Rey, or you can not bring back Rey. But what you have to do is you have to just make good movies. That's it. This is all you gotta do. You make good movies. Like the idea that you need complete just absolute confidence that however your movie turns out, that it's going to be a success because of nostalgia based reasons, that's just a sinking ship. That's not reliable. Right? Like, if we just look at some of the more celebrated Marvel and DC and Star Wars content in the past years, it's like, sure, with the MCU you have stuff like Deadpool and Wolverine, right? That's been their biggest box office success. But even more recently, Agatha All Along. That show that came out, everybody was like, who asked for an Agatha show? But hey, maybe it wasn't a show that we necessarily were asking for, but came out. Most people really enjoyed it. On the Star Wars side of things, you have something like Andor. They announced that show, and everybody was like, myself included, we were all like, Andor? Nobody asked for Andor. Comes out, it's the best thing that Star Wars has ever done. Like, it's not even close. Like, it makes the original trilogy, it makes the prequels, it makes the sequel trilogy look like fucking... I'm trying to think of a stupid example that my brain is farting at the moment. But either way, it was really good. Look at DC, just recently, The Penguin. When they announced that they were making a spin-off show from the Batman about Colin Farrell's Penguin, people were like, we all really liked Colin Farrell in the role, but do we really need a Penguin show? Was anybody asking for a Penguin show? And then they just casually made a show that's probably going to win Emmys. It's definitely going to be nominated for Best Leading Actor, Best Leading Actress, Best Drama, and it might even win. It might even win some of those. So it's just just make a good movie. Just make a good Star Wars movie. You have your nostalgia asset. You have your cinematic asset. It's called fucking Star Wars. If you make a good movie where people have lightsabers and they're using the Force, that's all you need to do. That's all you got to do. Anyways, I'm going to stop yelling and ranting and raging. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.